doing a hardware project, and it's our goal to make an open source, accessible plate reader that can be brought more to the masses. So our story begins with open source. What does that mean? Well, it was 48 years ago in a Massachusetts computer lab that a revolution was born. Richard Stallman, here, stumbled across MIT's AI lab. This was a computer lab where he fell in love with not just computing, but also with the community that this lab contained. This community, it was interesting. It wasn't like a computer lab of today. We have to put ourselves back in the mindset of the time period. The group of hackers, as they like to call themselves, working in the lab, they all shared a singular computer that occupied nearly the entire room. This computer imposed no limitations on the hackers. The MIT's AI lab was notorious in preventing security measures from being added so that these hackers were unrestricted in what they were doing. Stallman said that they could always look at the source code for the program. They could look at it and they could read it, they could change it, or even take bits of it and cannibalize it to make a new program. Additionally, this lab, they always wanted to share what they created. They were open to sharing what they had with other universities and organizations. It was Stallman's firm belief that computers should enable cooperation and collaboration, not competition. But nothing good can last forever, and the AI lab was no exception. Eventually, the lab collapsed when two companies that came out of it tore in two. They, in the spirit of competition, ceased sharing their discoveries with the world and hid all of their information behind corporate non-disclosure agreements. With his sanctuary dismantled, Stallman set out to create something better. He wanted revenge. And so to do this, he decided that he would found the GNU project, represented by the lovely GNU there. Fun fact, I think that killed Picasso. But Stallman's project, he wanted to prove that open source software could be a good thing. People didn't have to forfeit their freedoms when it came to software just for the convenience of the proprietary options. He felt that the world was already enough of a dog-eat-dog jungle as it was, and he wanted to replace that culture with a concern for constructive cooperation. Now, every revolution has its ups and its downs. There were some battles won and some battles lost. So in the early 90s, the GNU project joined up forces with another open source project called Linux. And together they formed an operating system that could compete with Microsoft's Windows. Now, in the early days, Microsoft fought tooth and nail to maintain its monopoly. In fact, their cutthroat business tactics got them dragged into the US Supreme Court. And at one point, Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer at the time went as far as to call Linux a cancer that infected everything that it touched. But the seeds of revolution had been sown. And today we live in a world dominated by open source software. The internet runs on GNU Linux, and it lies at the heart of every Android phone ever made. The internet is no longer dominated by the proprietary Internet Explorer, God forbid, and instead controlled by things that are more open, like Firefox. And even Google, they maintain the Chromium project, which countless other browsers are built on. There's also community software that's incredibly popular, like VLC Media Player, a lovely application, and popular programming languages like Python, which are examples of open source success stories. Even Microsoft has come around and realized that maybe they were a bit harsh the first time. They've begun to try to build an alliance with GNU Linux, and they're even building the next web browser, their Microsoft Edge browser, on top of the Chromium project. The cherry on top is that Microsoft now owns the world's largest code sharing platform, GitHub. Now, where does it go from here? With the world of software, all but conquered, where does Stallman's revolution go? The answer is to hardware. There are examples of hardware projects like Arduino, which are massive and open, and it's also made its way into iGEM as well, with things like Valencia's Chatter Plant idea, which is an open source project, as well as the project that we're building on top of Bright Biotics. So, what makes open source hardware special? It's the customizability that comes with it. You don't have to wait for somebody else to implement some feature. If you have an idea, you have all the information you need to make that happen. Open source or science has always been characterized by collaboration. It's always been a community sport, if you will. So it's a natural fit for this idea. But where do we go from there? Well, the next development is the development of open source lab equipment. With that, we can empower more people to participate in science. And as it happens, that's where we come in.
So in our project, we wanted to have an impact that we could measure. such as bringing an otherwise expensive machine into the hands of STEM students. Science is one of those subjects where you could read all the theory you want, but to gain practical knowledge is very difficult. So one way we thought of handling this was to take an old iGEM project and develop it, to take a proof of concept and bring it up to a functional prototype. So what we did was we developed on Sheffield 2017's iGEM project, Bright Biotics, where they made a cheaper and more accessible microplate reader. So what does a microplate reader do? Well, over here in our diagram, we have our green layer at the top that holds all our LEDs, and the blue layer at the bottom that holds all our sensors. In between these, you put a microplate which holds all your samples. And the microplate will shine a light through these samples and measure how much light goes through it. That light that goes through it will show a physical or chemical change. That could be bacterial growth or an enzyme reaction. So we looked at this project and we saw a couple of things that we wanted to change. Bright Biotics has 96 individual LEDs and 96 photodiodes that they use. And we thought that it was very difficult to standardize these 90 readings from these 96 different sensors. So what we did was we took one sensor and one source, kept them fixed, and had a movable plate between them that moves using stepper motors, as you can see with the arrows, that move them in the X and Y direction. And next, we have a video of how our microplate reader works. That green rod over there, that represents our light source and our sensor. And as you can see, it shows how our microplate will be moved using the stepper motors. We're currently testing them with a 48 well plate sensor. And we noticed that all the readings can be done in under 5 minutes. But a simple change in software can make this applicable to a 96 microplate. So we have our sources over there on the left. That is an LED that we're going to use with an integrated filter to get 600 nanometers. And on its right, you have an LED with its own integrated filter. These are our sensors. The first one is the one we're currently using, the photodiode. But we're going to change it to the next one, which is a phototransistor, because we think we're going to get more sensitive data. Oh, and here's the best bit. Because you can customize your own OpenLux microplate reader with whatever set of sources and sensors that you like. And here is the brain of our system. This is an ESP8266 microcontroller board. It is one of many open source programmable microcontrollers. It does many things. It controls the movement of our plate. It collects the readings from the sensors. It stores that data in a server that it hosts by itself. And it plots that data live in real time. So anyone who has access to it can see it anywhere, anytime.
Now that we talked you through how our device works, let's talk about the end game for that device. We wanted to go to potential end users and see, with their feedback, what are the adjustments we need to make to our device. Our first potential end user is Professor Green, biology professor at our U. That's us on the right being shown their very own real microplate reader by the student. That's 10 grand on your screen. When they bought it, 3 technicians had to show up, set it up, and teach everyone how to use it. And there are only 4 in the entire department. And if you want to use this one, you have to book it 2 weeks in advance. But something as simple as a screw breaking means you have to send off the entire machine and everyone's work has to wait. So next on our adventure was Karan. He mostly works with cancer research in his lab, which mostly involves fluorescence. For a microplate reader that doesn't do fluorescence, means it's not of much use to them. That got us thinking, because adding fluorescence to our microplate reader adds a world of complexity, especially given our time frame in Boston. We decided that, we also learned that for a microplate, it's necessary for it to shape the sample. So that's 2 of the people we've spoken to out of the many. Let's take all that data back to our lab and analyze what we have. So we have a microplate reader that will cost you about £200 that is fully customizable with parts bought from Amazon. That means if anything goes wrong, you just buy a part, replace it, and that means that service time and cost will be at an all-time low. For our time frame with Boston, we decided to focus on 600 nanometers and a shape. Now let's compare what we have to a real absorbance-only microplate reader made by Berthold. As you can see, the price is £4,000, a whopping 20 times more than our 200. Also, their microplate reader is an entirely closed system that's non-customizable. It means if anything breaks, you have to send it off, and also that means the service charges are much higher. So, as long as our device is accurate, we plan to have a functional prototype for Boston. We plan to do that by calibrating it against at least 2 of the microplate readers we have already. With OpenLux, we want to cut the buying price down by a lot. So we can push this technology further, make it smaller and more widely accessible. We can bring it to high school labs for STEM students. Community labs such as Biocrea based in Madrid. And when we spoke to its founder and fellow iGEMer, Frank, mentioned how he cannot afford a microplate reader. We can also bring it to university teaching labs. This is actually one of our very own labs in the University of Sheffield. It can hold up to 100 students at a time, and yet it is not feasible to purchase microplate readers. Also finally, we can bring it to microbiology labs in hospitals. Hospitals already spend tons of money on specialized non-microbiology equipment. So to sum it all up, we told you about the open source movement, gave you an idea of what our device is, how it works, what sort of plan we have for Boston. So with that, thank you for attention, and a thank you to all the people that made this happen. I'd like to ask the entire Sheffield team to come and join us, please, as well.
What is the current margin of error, and how will it decrease if you use a photoresistor instead of a photodiode?
Well, we haven't done an extensive amount of comparing the two. Our photodiode actually showed up in the previous week when we were preparing for that presentation. We've done some preliminary research, though. With the way that the phototransistor works, we can pass just a greater amount of voltage across it. It just acts the base pin that turns the transistor on and off is the light in this case. So by passing through more voltage, we get essentially a bigger signal coming out of it. We've also taken our photodiodes, which just create a voltage that's relative to the light amount. They act a little bit like solar panels. We've hooked those up to an amplifier, and that's given us a bit more resolution.
What is the rough reading range in volts then?
Technically, you can have up to 2048 discrete values. Because we're measuring growth, the actual value isn't as important as the shape of the curve. So we predict we can get enough data to show the more.
I'm just thinking, from the breadboards that I've seen, is there any filtering, is there any error compensation? So for example, if you have a high noise environment or anything like this, is there anything to prevent noise from, because it's a very elegant thing, but I'm just thinking, is there noise cancelling?
At this stage, there isn't. We intend to put in some software noise cancelling, and if we have time, put some hardware, but we have.
Additionally, the long-term plan is interchangeable modules. Each one of them has a little memory chip on board, which can be used, one, to identify which module it is, so the software knows how to drive it. But it can also be used to store calibration information for the individual sensors and stuff. So probably not going to tackle teaching those stuff.
Also, finally, this is the sort of heart of the machine, but when it comes to the actual use, this will be encased in a completely light shut environment, and so any sort of noise would be within the sample, which would be through the software and calibration that will take it to that. Any questions? Thank you.
So that concludes our first day at the UK Meetup. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for all the talks you've had today. If you want to leave your posters by the sign-in desk in the other room.